Welcome to my review of Battle Zeque Den, Japan-only exclusive game for the Super Famicom. And, this game, I can start by saying it's a very mediocre fucking game and really fucking tedious. So, I can't say much good about this. I mean, mechanically, it performs fine. You know, it's a perfectly playable game. So, I mean, that's the one positive thing I can say about it. And, you know, it doesn't look horrible, so there's that. The music, I don't even remember. I don't think the music was too memorable. Pretty standard shit. Game looks kind of washed out, but it looks okay. I mean, the art style is okay. I mean, you know, even that is not too great. So this is a very simple beat 'em up in the sense that there is no up or down movement as far as, you know, moving in different planes. You're just moving left to right and you can jump. And that's about it. So it's a lot like Kung Fu or something like that in that sense. But of course there's more moves than that old game. But Kung Fu is a much better game than this shit. I mean, this game is pretty repetitive. But it is playable. You'll see, I'm going to show that there's a lot of areas where you can just exploit the enemies by using terrain and pulling bullshit with the terrain. And the bosses, you can do a lot of exploits on the bosses, but the game is just very kind of tedious and monotonous. It's really not too hard. I think you have unlimited continues, but it is kind of frustrating. I would have to check my completion time to see exactly how long this one took. I think it may have taken a few hours to beat. I don't think it took too long, maybe 2 hours within that range. But you know, maybe even like an hour and a half. I'm not sure. It wasn't too long to beat. It's a pretty easy game, but it is still kind of frustrating because there is a lot of bullshit. It may even be limited continues now that I think about it, but I think I just figured it out before I ran out of continues. You know, I don't even remember completely because I played this game a little while ago. I do have the playthrough up on my channel, so I will drop a link to that if you want to see the playthrough. I didn't do a tutorial for this one because it's just kind of a basic-ass game, you know. And you can see the kind of bullshit I'm pulling when you watch the video. There's not much to explain. But the game has a lot of slowdown. There's not a lot of enemy variety. Enemies take way too many hits. It just feels very monotonous. It's usually about throwing the enemies to one side and grouping them together and then just punching the shit out of them. You know, it's just like it's slow. It's kind of just fucking monotonous. I really didn't like this game, but I do like fucking beating games. So, you know, for me, it was about getting it on the kill list. But I got tired of the game pretty quick. You know, especially doing shit like this. You know, you can see this is very tedious. I was just going with some low-risk maneuvers since I kept getting fucked over by the game with cheap shots and shit like that. But you can definitely get the idea of how fucking tedious it can get. So yeah, so this is one of the boss fights. And the bosses, again, you can pull a lot of bullshit. You see I'm just spamming the slides. And you can spam a lot of moves and pull bullshit on the bosses. You know, you got some special moves, as you can see. I didn't even really look up how to do the specials, but I just kind of mashed buttons. I would figure I could do some fireballs, some other shit. I think you need to collect some items and build up your meter before you can unleash them. There's also some kind of XP system, I think, where you level up. But I don't really remember noticing what it actually did. Maybe you do more damage, but it doesn't really feel like it. But you can see how easy this shit is. You know, first I'm spamming the slide. Now I'm just jump kicking the guy. As long as you jump kick him quickly, he won't be able to do anything. So you can pull a lot of bullshit on the bosses. This may even be the final boss with all these bosses you fight in a row. I guess we'll find out. I don't remember exactly. But see, again, the sliding pulls a lot of bullshit. It's just a lot of tedious shit of spamming the same shit again and again. I mean, you can try to play it in more of a freestyle way if you want it to look flashy, but the game doesn't really reward you for doing that because it just plays pretty shitty. You'll probably just end up taking damage. So there's really no point. This game is probably based on some kind of Japanese IP or something like that. Maybe a cartoon. The fuck I know. I mean, I have no idea what it is. It looked like a beat 'em up. I figured, sometimes beat 'em ups are easy kills. I saw it in the Hyperspin interface where it shows a preview of the game, before starting it. So it looked like it might be an easy kill, so that's why I booted it up. But other than that, I don't think I've ever heard of this. But you can see these fights can be really tedious, and I'm sure you could, there's better ways to do this, but this is a really safe way to do it. I edited it down. You could see that was going to go on for quite a while, so there was no sense showing any more of that for a review. But it's just a very tedious. Every fight is pretty, tedious for the most part. I mean, the fact that an old game like Kung Fu for Arcade and the NES port are so much better than this, is kind of a disgrace since this game, came out way later. A game that's kind of similar to this is Ninja Warriors on the Super Nintendo, or even the arcade, and those games are much, much better than this. I mean, this is just a very, very kind of tedious game. I mean, it doesn't seem that bad when you look at it because it's like it's you can play it. It's totally playable, but there's really not much variety to how you fight the enemies. You're not forced to become good at the game or do anything skillful. It's just you can exploit the whole game just by spamming shit, positioning bullshit. It's very easy to exploit. It really doesn't require much from the player at all. So I think this is pretty much like the final boss gauntlet where you fight a bunch of bosses back to back. You can see me just pulling tons of bullshit on each form. So you can already see. I mean, I'm probably showing way more than I need to, but I think I show the most of the final boss fight. I did edit down some of the parts. But, I mean, you'll definitely get the idea by the time this review is over. And it's not really going to spoil anything because the game already spoiled itself. It's pretty bad. So now this may be the final form finally. And by the way, all those bosses that you just saw me fight, all it was is they just recycled the bosses from the previous stages. None of those were new bosses from what I remember. It was all recycled bullshit. And of course, a lot of games do that. But it's more, I guess you say, more egregious in this case because the game is already so fucking tedious. It's just wasting your time by fighting all the same shitty boss fights again that were all shitty fights to begin with, but now you got to fight them all in a row. So this stage is really the only challenging part of the game, really. I mean, it's not that bad. If you use save states to practice each boss and kind of learn the sections, then it wasn't too hard to put together. That's what I did. But most of the fights are just very tedious. So here you get to fight a clone of yourself. I think at this point I still had 6 lives left over and I was already at the end. Because, I mean, it wasn't even that challenging to learn, you know what I mean? It was just tedious. And the bosses are not able to bypass certain things. Like, if you spam certain bullshit on certain bosses, there's nothing they can really do. Just badly designed. So yeah, I will show the rest of this fight, but yeah, I would give this game a 4 out of 10. I think it's below mediocre. You know, I mean, you could argue maybe that it's mediocre, but I would probably put it a little bit below mediocre because it's just not a game I'd ever want to play again. It's really fucking boring, really repetitive. The only reason I wouldn't review it any lower than that is just because it's a playable game. That's about it. I mean, it's completely playable. It plays fine for the most part. You know, it's serviceable, but I mean, all the fights are just really fucking tedious. Enemies take way too long to kill. It's all the same enemies pretty much in each stage with very little variety. I mean, the core combat mechanics are just so weak anyway that it wouldn't really matter if there was a lot of enemy variety because the game just kind of goes on forever, just plays like shit. I mean, there's things they could have done to improve it in its current form, like, you know, give enemies way less health would have helped because it takes really long. You know, when you throw enemies off screen, you got to wait for them to come back on screen again or try to punch them off screen. It's just super tedious. You do that with every group of enemies. And, you know, just not a good game at all. So I definitely wouldn't recommend it. Let me know if you have any questions, and thanks for watching.